I'm getting appointment, I think. She left us and she became a clerk. She was a deputy, now she's a clerk of Concord.
As much as you can.
I got 8 or 10 others.
Because she came, I didn't know she was at the conference. But when we were leaving,
Yeah, I didn't see her.
When we
I would have
were
recognized
leaving.
her.
yeah, when we were leaving, good morning,
Good
sir, how
morning.
are you? When we were leaving, she came up and said, Mr. Councilman. I didn't. Honey, you think we need to know Mr. Councilman Spears? We definitely need to know. So,
Oh, is that,
who did this on? Sean says, I did. I said, well, you might want to. Okay, I'll do it probably towards the end of it. No, he should have had it by now. You might want to do it next.
Because there's something about, you can't give them something unless the person.
You cannot discuss an item that has not been given to every council member and we don't get explanations. In other words, when we sent the packet out, we should have sent it in. But we forgot, definitely should have sent it live last night. But this is the kind of thing that just throws me. We don't think of stuff like that. I should have to. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Hey, man.
Again?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I had food, snacks, moose cake, all that kind of stuff. I get home Friday morning,
You got nothing?
can't even find water. Can't find water. I don't do it. I don't like that.
We gonna tell somebody. We don't know who we
It
gonna
was
tell.
ugly. It was ugly, man. Had bills every day, over and over, good stuff. Nothing.
I know, the old 10 o'clock snack round, I miss that too.
Those are the things that I shouldn't have to remind people. Especially me, the clerk.
Check.
She's
We'll bring the meeting to order. I do know that Mayor Pro Tem will not be with us today. She is absent. Mr. Reinbach, are you here? Mr. Anderson, are you here? Mr. Barnett, are you here? Ms. Spears, are you here?
Here.
Mr. Waddell, you here? And the chair is here. We have a quorum, ready to go. We have several presentations tomorrow night. Consent agenda, C1 is a resolution to declare fire safety training trailer as surplus property and authorize its donation to Western Carteret Fire and EMS Department. C2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase 40 sets of firefighting coats and pants from NAFCO of Decatur, Alabama for $137,581 through the MPP Gov Government Cooperative Buying Agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I got a quick question about the C1.
Okay.
Do they not, would West Carteret not want to be willing to pay market value? I realize it's only $3,000, but.
I apologize. Tom Robinson with the Fire Department is here to answer questions on this item.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. When we had originally put this out as interest, it was, if anybody was interested in being able to use it as a donation, we never really asked for the amount of the $3,000. That ever came up, it was if anybody could use it as a donation, because it's going to need some work to get it up to usable standards again, and it's going to need some upfitting to make it a little bit more to today's training standards.
I just made a note, because I mean, we're making significant investments, you know, in the fire department, and which it would rightfully so, of course, but pennies make dollars. I've said that a few times, and you know, counting your paper clips and all that is important. So moving forward, not for this, you know, if we put it out there for a donation, but moving forward, I'd like to find some way to pull some, you know, taxpayer income back on items rather than just donating them outright, if possible.
Right, and this is one of the items we just really didn't feel putting on surplus would probably sell, because it's such a specific type of item. Yeah. Can't be used just for like storage or anything. It's an actual training trailer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, we have several public hearings tomorrow evening. In fact, we have 6 of them. PH1 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 3.29 acres of land located at 1610 Teberon Drive from O&I 1 CD Office and Institutional Conditional District to a new O&I CD Office and Institutional Conditional District to allow for a restaurant. PH2 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 3.07 acres of land located at 5500 Riceville Avenue from CB Community Business and O&I 1 Office and Institutional District to MD 17 CD High Density Multiple Dwelling Residential District Conditional District for a 32-unit townhome development. Yes, sir.
Is there a planning staff member on this one?
Brian Chambers is answering questions this morning.
All right. Brian's just taking them all. Since it's a question, I mean, to planning, I thought I'd ask now maybe to better get a clearer understanding. So as I read it, the reason for denial is you want more of a mixed use on that piece of property.
Yeah, that's correct. We were kind of on the fence on this one. We support the residential density there, but we thought based on the policies of the plan, it really did serve it better to have a mixed-use component to that residential. So we're kind of, it was a tough one for us on this one.
Like what, like example?
I'm
I mean, a real-life example, not just out of the code.
Live-work units where you have office below, live above, maybe a corner store, something there to provide services for that immediate area.
But I guess on all sides of it, it's residential right now, right? Well, across the street there's some stuff.
There's some commercial catty corner. There's mobile homes across the street. I believe there's a church on the other side of French Road.
Okay. At some point, you know, I know y'all, when you get fully staffed or whatever. So I'd love to have a look, Tony, at whether we, you know, I see so many of these places where we're trying to achieve this mixed use. They're different designations, but in essence, at the end of the day, you have something at the bottom. I think of the one, I don't know the name of it, you may recall it, over at Carr. And, you know, the one that's just completing over on 17th. I'd just be curious if they're, you know, with how leased up they are. In other words, like, I don't know if we can do a survey. There's not that many of those. They're the ones that fall under, would that be under CDMU? What would this be zoned if you had your way?
The current zoning would allow for what staff would
Okay.
recommend here.
But I guess these mixed, I just want to make, what I want to avoid, I understand what our goals are, but reality sometimes, I don't think it's good for things to sit empty for
Yes, sir.
5, 6, 7 years or whatever, and we need to evaluate what we're doing there, I think, and make sure that's working, or how we can change it or what have you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Brian Barr? Brian, this property is not, it's in a good location. It's on that curve. It's got a large mobile home park to one side of it. It's got a dirt road on the other side of it, and across the street is a doctor's office. Up the street toward town is commercial. You have a grocery store. You have several small neighborhood groceries, a convenience store with gas. In the other direction, you have a club, the Triangle, and then across the street from that, you've got another convenience store. And behind this property, a block away, is Oleander Drive, with all of the commercial and the services that anybody would need. And a townhouse community there, in my opinion, makes good sense. I don't know why we would cloud that up with retail. And the retail market right now is just, it's there's one on Carr Avenue that my company happens to be representing. We don't get, I asked on Friday, we're just not getting any bites on it on the ground floor of that apartment complex. It just, I think that this property, the Wrightsville Avenue corridor overlay, has done more, in my opinion, to stymie good growth along Wrightsville Avenue than it ever has to build good development, because of the way it restricts. So I'm going to go against you all on this one tomorrow night. I think this is a good project, and I don't see a need for any kind of commercial along there. Just
Understood.
my opinion. Thank you.
Before you go, hold on, we have.
I had a couple questions as well, Brian, because I noticed, I always look at the red marks, and you guys really mark it up pretty good. So you were basically saying the reason you're against this project is because it is residential?
Lean into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
I'm listening intently, but
So I'm saying the reason you're against this project is because, bottom line.
we were on the fence with this. We think it's a good location for an increase in density. We just felt that it would be better if there were a mix of uses or some kind of non-residential at this location to provide services for the surrounding area, because it is identified as a neighborhood node. Again, we were on the fence, so we struggled with this recommendation, so I completely understand everybody's questions up here.
When you say on the fence,
Meaning we were either going to support or not support, but we fell on the side of, well, it says a neighborhood node, let's support the neighborhood node, basically.
Okay. And there were no people in the neighborhood that were against it or anything? I don't remember seeing any. Okay.
There were people that came out of the meeting. There's always somebody that comes out against whatever project comes out, but it wasn't against the neighborhood node itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, just quickly piggybacking again with Neil and Charlie, I think it's really important that we don't oversaturate, I know I'm probably speaking the choir a little bit here, but don't oversaturate this retail commercial market just because the code's telling us to, and kind of use, which I think you guys do a good job of, use that common sense and judgment when looking at projects that are going to make sure that we can bring in the housing stock that we need, which I think this is providing. So just piggybacking on that.
Absolutely. And we're always looking to fine-tune our comprehensive plan. So moving forward, that's something we're going to be looking at.
Brian, just explain this to me. Market conditions change. You guys worry more about planning. The market's always worrying about what the market can provide. Return on investment, that's what the private sector is going to focus on. We're focused more on the uses. Why would we not allow somebody to go ahead and build this property out in a residential component, because that's what they feel the market dictates today, but with an opportunity or an option within the code that allows somebody to retrofit or go back with commercial if the market dictates that?
I think that's a great idea.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective as the market, I can tell you this, and for those that are in the real estate business, if the market finds out that Tommy down the street is making money on a retail operation within their apartment complex and they're making $20 a foot, the first thing everybody in the marketplace is going to do is say, hey, we got to start putting some retail into our places because that's what the market dictates right now. And what you're hearing from a lot of us up here is that right now, because a lot of people are buying online, retail is tough. I understand what you folks are trying to do is trying to put those neighborhood nodes and those little places there where people in that neighborhood will more likely go to walk through or provide their services for. But I think that's the way you ought to maybe couch this thing, just like if we have in all of our zoning ordinances a number of uses, it gives them the opportunity that if they want to come back later, depending on what market conditions do, they can retrofit it. I think that would,
I agree 100%.
that would provide, provide you with the planning process necessary to put those in if need be, and it gives the market the opportunity to pivot if need be based on what it is. Because we've seen market conditions change on a number of things from North Fourth to South Front to everything where we've had to recalculate or repurpose things because market dictates what now market wants to do.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I just remind you that your comprehensive plan is aspirational and your market is more contemporaneous.
Sure.
And so you're going to have these incidents where what is marketable at this point in time is not necessarily in keeping with the aspirational. And I think it's at those points that you're given the opportunity to tune that. And I think that's what Brian's saying here is that essentially we've got an opportunity to be aspirational, but the market just doesn't support it at this point.
Exactly.
I just don't know, telling you how long you wait to review it is all I'm getting at. And then do the fine tuning, and whether that's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I think it's in the foreseeable future to just take a look, see what we're doing. Because I think of, and I won't, maybe it's Bradley Point, I don't know, it was Steve Anderson, and I realize it's all commercial, but it is a mix. But having that parking out front, it's just, I guess, 2 rows from memory. Mm-hmm. That has made that retail succeed. Even if there were apartments above, I believe it would have done the same thing. I guess is my point. And I know we're trying to pull to the road and all that, but we have to look at, we don't want empty storefronts. So,
correct.
So that's
absolutely.
So we need to take a look at it in the next 6 months.
And we're always listening to what comes from you guys, and we're always taking that into account when we start making future decisions. So we're constantly fine tuning.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, PH3 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 3.32 acres of land located at 6261 and 6265 Wrightsville Avenue from R15 moderate density single dwelling district to R5CD medium density mixed residential district conditional district for a 14-lot residential subdivision. Yes, sir.
They put on this one, I think I understand, but understand why, and I think I can appreciate why in this case that y'all are against having the accessory dwellings. It's just because as I read it, you're already, the density is already kind of it's pushed already for that location, and you don't want to have more. And with our formula, I'm not sure what could be built by there anyway. But is that? Could you support that a little bit, or give me a little more support for that? Because it sounds like that's a pinch point for the developer. They have not conceded to that yet. That's what you're asking.
That's what came out of Planning Commission. So I think staff went into Planning Commission that we didn't want to support duplexes on there, but accessory dwellings is not something we're against. When this went to Planning Commission said, well, we'll support attached accessory dwelling units, but not detached. At that point, the applicant tentatively kind of agreed to that, but since that time, they don't want to agree to that. So that's the pinch point.
All right.
So staff supports ADUs.
Okay, take those, clarify all that, go slower. Duplexes, no, you're against, or?
Right, we wanted to make sure it was a single-family lots and a single-family subdivision for that neighborhood.
Detached versus attached, how did that how did that go about? How did that what was the conversation at planning?
The conversation at Planning Commission is, I believe, the residents came out in opposition to more density. Planning commissioners, several planning commissioners spoke and supported, well, you know, we don't want to put an oversaturation of uses. We don't want to have, basically we want to put a restriction on the ADUs. And the restriction that came out of that was, well, how about we just allow attached ADUs as opposed to allowing attached and detached ADUs?
And the thought there is just encroachment on other people's
I think
property?
maybe you're having two separate buildings. There's more of an impact on the
stormwater, what have you.
I think it was a variety of things. But again, staff supports ADUs no matter how they're being presented to us in this situation.
Did you do any of the kind, I know we have I don't remember the form, you know, it's a certain percentage of the lot and certain percentage of the house, correct? For a freestanding?
We didn't run through the calculations at the meeting.
But it's going to be pretty tight.
Right. Those are smaller lots, so if you're going to have a detached, you're going to have to get pretty creative.
It'll be a hut. Okay. All right. Thanks.
PH4 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 1.01 acres of land located at 5737 Market Street from RB Regional Business to CSCD Commercial Services Conditional District to allow a 3-story indoor self-storage facility. PH5 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 1.56 acres of land located at 6756 Market Street from CSCD Commercial Services Conditional District to RB Regional Business District. And then PH6 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 1.23 acres of land located at 109 and 111 Giles Avenue from R10 Residential to R5 CD Residential Conditional District for 2 residential lots containing a quadruplex structures. And then we come to ordinances. 01 is an ordinance to deobligate the diesel emission reductions grant contract appropriation amount of $637,970. And then 02 is an ordinance appropriating $511,484 for a refund of short-term lodging registrations collected since program's inception and accrued interest.
Mr. Mayor, we have a brief presentation from Assistant City Attorney Sean Evans on this, if you don't mind.
Bill, real quick on let me get a real quick question on 01, going backwards. So I'm sure we reached out to the grant givers and there's just no extension or the truck is just so far out that, you know, it's like 5 years and not 5 months.
Essentially, the truck is so far out that the grant is
just an idea at this point. It's not really a.
Let Rick Porter address that, if you would.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right that we tried extensions. We even tried alternative manufacturers, and there was nobody that was able to deliver an adequate vehicle within the time frame of the grant.
So it's still kind of a project for these people. They're not ready to go.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm not John Joy. He sends his apologies. He is at home recovering from COVID. He hopes to be back in the office later this week, but I'll be filling in for him this morning and at your regular meeting tomorrow evening. I'll be giving this presentation 2 times. This presentation has been prepared at the request of council to update the public following the recent Schroeder decision from the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Beginning with a brief summary, this case, the litigation in this case started here in New Hanover County, in New Hanover County Superior Court. At that setting, the trial judge held that Wilmington's entire short-term lodging ordinance was invalid, basically overturning it. And also at the same hearing, he denied the Schroeder's constitutional claims. So as a result of that, both parties appealed to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. The case was up there for a period of time. Recently, early in April, the court rendered their decision. And,
Sean?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
And this is just me explaining it to the public. When you put in here split decision, it wasn't a split decision. It was a unanimous decision at the appeals level. And I think people need to be aware of that. In case those folks that are out here thinking that we can appeal this, they need to be made aware of the fact that when you have a 3-0 vote on an appeal process, you don't take it to the Supreme Court. You can ask for it, but very rarely are you ever going to be allowed to go to the Supreme Court. So I just think that that's just a thing that I understand what you're trying to say here. Is part of it was uphill, part of it was voided, but we need to be very clear to those citizens out here that when this was taken to court, from the Superior Court room to the appeals process, that it was a unanimous decision at the appeals level.
Mr. Mayor, excellent point. You're exactly correct. The case was 3-0 at the appellate court. The opinion was drafted by Judge Inman, and both Judges Zachary and Carpenter concurred in that. It was 3-0. So the court basically, where I was going with that, you're correct. Split decision means part of our ordinance was upheld, part of it was not. It was not a split decision by the judges on the panel. It was a unanimous decision. And you're absolutely correct. With a unanimous decision, there's no appeal as to right. If it had been 2-1, if there had been a dissenting judge, then either the city or the Schroeders would have had an automatic right to carry this up to a higher level court. But that's not here in this case. If somebody wanted to appeal, they could, but it would be up to the Supreme Court to take it up if they wanted to, or not take it up if they did not want to. You're exactly correct. I'll make that more clear in my presentation tomorrow night. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And as you indicated, the city has decided that we are not going to take further appellate action in this matter. In the next few slides, I'll give an overview of the court's decision, the parts that were upheld and the parts that were voided. And as you go, if y'all have questions, if you just want to jump in, that's fine with me, or if you want to hold them to the end, either way, it doesn't bother me. So let's talk for a minute about what was upheld in the court's decision. Most of our specific regulations and rules dealing with short-term lodgings have been upheld. It's more of the process by which they were registered and the spacing that was not upheld by the court. But as you can see on this slide, the city can ban this use by district. The parking requirements that we have in place were considered valid by the court. And just in quick summary, the parking requirements require an off-site or an off-street space for each bedroom that's being used in a short-term capacity. The insurance requirements by the city have been upheld. Our current ordinance requires $500,000 of liability insurance for these uses. Bedroom maximums have been upheld. That was only in place in homestays. The ground floor restrictions in certain districts have been upheld. A requirement that there be a local manager somewhere within 25 miles that can be contacted by guests has been upheld. And all the nuisance-related rules regarding parties, events, problems with trash and other things have also been upheld by the court. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Sean, just a question. So I have let's just say a rental.
Yes, sir.
And since we're not allowed to register them now, and there's a party going on, and the police roll up because they've got some complaints, how do we know who the local manager is?
It would be more difficult to determine initially, and you brought up a good point. If there's a problem, neighbors need to call the police, and police will come and respond and deal with what's going on scene. However, our zoning department does have tools where if a complaint is filed, they can look into it, determine who the owner of that property is, and start an investigation, determine if there's been a violation.
So if there is no local manager, although they can probably say that I'm the local manager, let's just say if I'm the owner, then is there a time limit as to that manager having to roll up on the scene to take care of the issue or get the people out of the house if they're over there just trashing the neighborhood?
I'm not certain that our code currently addresses that, but that's something that we'll need to take a look at as we work through this.
All right, thank you.
Hold on. Well, I would think, we're not disqualifying this portion of our ordinance, correct?
That's correct. What's on the slide in front of you here has been upheld.
So in
by
other
Court of
words,
Appeals.
if an officer pulls up, you can ask, who's the, the leasee, who's leased the place? Okay, hi, I'm the person. Can you give me the number for the manager? And they should be able to provide that. I mean, it should be somewhere.
Should be, according to our ordinance, posted inside the home. That's correct.
All right.
And they're also required to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay. Thank you. Following the court's decision, the parts of our ordinance that are no longer allowed are the city's registration requirement and related postings inside the home. In addition, the court held that the 400-foot separation and the 2% cap were too intertwined with the registration system, and they were also held to be invalid by the court. So the city is no longer able to enforce those provisions of our current ordinance. There's a note here. This is getting into the weeds a little bit, so I'll keep it brief, but the court also held that prior proof of shared parking agreements is getting too close to having a registration system. Shared parking agreements are still required if you can't meet your on-site parking, but we can't ask for it up front. So what happens next? The city is publishing guidance documents. They will be available today, right after this presentation. This PowerPoint presentation will be available, and there'll be a bullet point sheet also available. The city had previously put on our website that we're no longer enforcing the items that were on the last slide involving the registration system, the cap, and the 400-foot separation requirement. So that information has been made available to the public.
So, Sean, if somebody got a fine of $100 from the city because they didn't register their property, that is void now?
That's correct.
Okay, very good.
Yes, sir. The city has begun the process of amending our current ordinances. Those are scheduled to go through. It's a two-part process. As you well know, it's got to go to the Planning Commission first, and then it'll come to you. So it's scheduled to go to the Planning Commission at their June meeting, and then it'll come to you for your single July meeting this summer. The city will refund all money that's been collected since the inception of this program until the present time. And it will be done so in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 160D 106 that lays out the process. There's a slide on that, and I'll go into it in a little bit more detail, but all monies that we have collected, including interest, will be repaid to those that have registered and paid in.
Yeah,
yes, sir, Mr. Barnett.
If a person paid a fine, like that $100 fine for not registering their event, would they get that back?
I'm sorry, one more time.
If a person pays, the mayor just mentioned, somebody may have paid a $100 fine. Would they get that back if someone paid that in advance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Reinberg?
Yes, sir, Mr. Reinberg.
The fines, I know we set aside the fees. Did we set aside fines?
I'm not certain about that. I know that we've set aside all fees that have been paid since we started this program. I'm not certain about the fines. I'll check with
Mr. Rivenbark, we did not set aside the fines. Those will come out of fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have an estimate on the amount that the fines are? I know we know what the registration fees are.
I don't know that we know what specifically the fines are, but the numbers that are contained in the attached ordinance will.
That's the total.
Will give you the total, and so that's all that's going to be refunded.
Okay.
Let me talk just a brief moment about the refund process. The process will begin immediately. It's already started. Both zoning and finance are working hard to get this going and get those checks out. Checks will be mailed to registered parties. Checks will also be refunded to folks who are in the system now who have an application in. That'll also be refunded. The refunds will include all registration fees paid. They will also include refund of any convenience fees that may have been a part of that. So if somebody paid with a credit card or a debit card, they were probably charged a convenience fee. That'll be refunded as well. And the state statute requires 6% interest to be paid on top of that. The item that's before you reflects those amounts. That's the O2 item that council will consider tomorrow night. It would include all of those amounts to be refunded for those who are current participants in the registration program. Any questions about that specifically?
Yeah.
And those are the changes in a nutshell. Happy to answer any more questions if you have them, and I'll be giving the same presentation tomorrow night. I'll try to do a better job of setting up that second slide, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next item of business is our resolutions. R1 is a resolution certifying sufficiency of the annexation petition for property located at 205, 209, 213, and 217 Middle Sound Loop Road. And then R2 is a resolution establishing a public hearing for annexation of property located at 205, 209, 213, and 217 Middle Sound Loop Road. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Apparently, the word's got out that we're doing a satellite annexation, because I've had 2 calls this weekend from people in the Middle Sound area telling the city to stay away from, they like it just the way it is. And I said, well, I don't blame you. I would too, getting the benefit of living here and not paying a single penny toward the upkeep of our fine city.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson.
Who's in charge? Anthony?
I am technically in charge, Mr. Anderson.
Right past you,
Of this
Tony.
item. I think I followed it, but I'm trying to figure out completely. So the county approved it,
That's correct.
okay? And they're coming,
They're
so-
coming to
so
us.
then why do they want me to annex?
They're coming to us for annexations. One of the things that enticed them for annexation was some subsidy for the affordability of the units.
From the state or someone else? Do you have to be in a municipality to get that? Is that what it?
I believe that some of this comes from municipality, but I'm too far down in the weeds. Mr. Moten, do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, it's kind of, if we could get an update just on the, it's like,
City will take.
all right, I'd just like to understand how it got here. But, all right, thanks.
It's offering like 30 to 80% AMI, right, for 55 plus. I think people are already knocking down doors trying to get in there,
Yes,
from
sir.
my understanding. So
Oh, I get that. I'm just saying, is it because you have to be part of a municipality to get that kind of
because
state?
who wouldn't want to be part of the city of Wilmington?
Okay.
It's because there is a portion of it that is city subsidized that the county did not have money to do. And so they are coming into the city for that purpose.
Okay. All right. Mr. Cottle, anything else?
No, sir.
Anything else, anybody? Okay, we'll see y'all tomorrow night. With that, we stand adjourned.